For spine-chilling true terrors, discovered stories of haunted places and sinister secrets, Rachel hadn't believed in ghosts, but the red glow from the derelict Maplewood Academy shattered her peaceful life. It pulsed into the night like a heartbeat, beckoning and ominous. The school loomed like a predator, its crumbling facade whispering tales of horror. No one talked about it in polite company, but all knew the story's children who vanished, the echoes of laughter now replaced by shadows that roamed its empty halls. Rachel felt that suffocating presence even before she parked her car that night. As she entered her home, a cold draft raced past her, prickling her skin. Alex was in tears, shaking like a leaf, convinced something was lurking outside his bedroom window. Mia's breathless whispers about a man in the shadows filled the kitchen with a terror Rachel couldn't shake. She felt the walls closing in, her heart pounding as she tried to calm her children. Each night, that unsettling glow from the academy grew brighter, pulsing with an insidious rhythm that aligned with Rachel's pounding heart. Days dragged by, tension increasing, each sleepless night creating deeper fissures in her sanity. The familiar faces of neighbors who once offered comfort now offered only concerned glances. She turned to Mr. Finley, her neighbor, for answers. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just tales to keep kids in line, he assured her, yet briefly, fear flickered across his face, matching the glow that haunted Rachel's nights. One evening, while washing dishes, the shadows twisted ominously inside her home. A noise. A scraping sound outside. Rachel dropped the plate, adrenaline surging as shards scattered like her heart. "Mom!" The footsteps. Alex's voice pierced the silence, desperation lacing his words. Rachel rushed to the window, but nothing. Just the moonlight draping the world in silence. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The glowing academy pulled at her every waking hour. Rachel decided enough was enough. As she read up on the school's past, each turn of the page revealed horrific tragedies, children lost to inexplicable circumstances, hints of dark rituals conducted by teachers shrouded in secrets. The chill in her bones told her the truth chased her closer to her family. One stormy night, the glow bled through her windows, as if the academy was burning with malevolence. Heart racing, Rachel raced to the door, feeling a pull she couldn't resist. Standing at the threshold, rain battering against her, she could almost hear the whispers beckoning her. What if her children weren't safe? The answers waited in that foreboding structure where shadows danced invitingly. With every step toward the ominous school, Rachel wondered, would she be their savior or simply another name lost to its haunted legacy? As Rachel stepped into the unrelenting night, the rain poured relentlessly, drenching her. The air tasted electric, laced with apprehension. Each drop was a reminder of the storm brewing inside her, uncertainty mingling with dread. She crossed the lawn, heart hammering against her ribcage like a frantic prisoner. The academy loomed ever closer, casting an elongated shadow that engulfed her. Distant thunder rumbled in a disjointed rhythm, mirroring her racing thoughts. Why had she come here? What possessed her to seek answers in a place drenched in despair? Each ominous step crunched with purpose, whispering secrets from beneath the earth. She reached the cracked steps, hesitating at the door that stood ajar, a gaping mouth that seemed to exhale a frosty breath. With a shaky hand, she pushed the door open further. It creaked, a lament for all who entered. The stench of mildew and decay hit her like a wall, almost forcing her back. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering under the sporadic flashes of lightning. For a heartbeat, she considered retreating, returning to her children. But a sharp memory of Alex's terrified scream propelled her forward. Inside, everything was draped in darkness. Desks lay overturned, papers scattered like fallen leaves in a harsh wind. Whispers echoed in the corners, rising like a chorus of lost souls. She shivered as she moved deeper, dimly lit by the infernal glow that seeped through cracked windows a sickening red, like an open wound. "Kids," her voice was a fragile whisper lost in the void. As she advanced into the hallway, the eerie silence punctured by her footsteps, Rachel spotted drawings taped to the walls. Children's art, gleeful stick figures with wide grins. Beneath those crude sketches were messages: help, shadows come, and run. Each message clenched her heart tighter, squeezing out breath and hope. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from a nearby classroom. Rachel froze, fear coursing through her veins like ice. She peered towards the door, heart racing again as the sound repeated, more frantic this time. Swallowing hard, she approached, each step weighted as if wading through the thick, stagnant air. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, barely managing to mask her terror. The door swung open eerily, as if inviting her in. A room illuminated by a flickering bulb revealed a classroom frozen in time, though something felt distinctly wrong. Desks were aligned like soldiers, and a chilling breeze rustled papers on the blackboard revealing scrawled words: "They are coming." Rachel's breath hitched. She felt she was being watched. She turned, scanning the room, and spotted a shadow lingering at the back, barely defined but undeniably present. A depth of darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. Panic surged inside her. What was this thing? As she moved back toward the door, a sound rose behind her, a soft yet deliberate taunting laugh echoed. "Stay, just stay." Adrenaline shot through her. The urge to run clawed at her psyche. Just as she turned to flee, swirling crimson light erupted from within the shadow, illuminating the face of a child, distorted, eyes wide with a hunger that chilled Rachel to her core. "Mommy," it whispered, though it didn't sound like Alex or Mia. It sounded like a trap. Rachel stumbled backward, heart pounding in terror. The whispers swirled around her, becoming a frenzied cacophony as more shadows materialized. She realized this was only the beginning. They were not lost, they were waiting. Fear gripping her, Rachel turned to flee. Yet, a sense of weight lingered, a warning that those she loved were now closer to danger than ever. Would she escape, or would she fall victim to the same fate that gripped the very walls of Maplewood Academy? The shadows seemed to come alive, converging around Rachel as she fought to steady her breath. The laugh echoed again, taunting, circling deeper into her mind. She bolted through the classroom door, heart racing, feeling the heat of desperate panic burning in her chest. The hallway stretched before her like a maw, dark and uninviting. Lightning illuminated the corridor just enough to reveal flickering images on the walls, more drawings of children trapped inside jagged, black lines, their expressions twisted in fear. She wanted to scream, but all that escaped her lips was a choked gasp. Each step felt weighed down by something sinister lurking just beyond her reach. Rachel's instincts kicked in. She sprinted down the hall, the wet echo of her shoes slapping against unyielding tiles. The oppressive atmosphere wrapped around her, heavy as a thick fog. She glanced back over her shoulder. The shadow had followed her, elongating and contracting with each flicker of the dying lights above. "Please, just let me find them," she whispered, desperation squeezing her throat. At the far end of the hall, she saw a door, half open, with a narrow beam of light spilling out into the dark. Her heart struck with hope. Was someone there? Maybe it was Alex or Mia, maybe they were safe. She dashed towards it, but every step felt like wading through thick water. The shadows slithered closer, filling her vision with creeping darkness. As she reached the door, it swung closed, locking her out. She banged her fist against the surface, desperation clawing at her insides. "Let me in!" she cried, the sound muffled as if it were swallowed by the very walls. Silence responded. The only sound was the frantic pounding of her heart. Then that dreadful laugh broke through again, more pronounced and chilling. "Stay, just stay." The voices blended into one, each echoing Rachel's fear. She stumbled back, fighting the urge to cry out, feeling invisible fingers running down her spine. Mustering her resolve, Rachel turned away from the door. She had to move, to fight against whatever was imprisoned here. Another bang echoed, but from behind her now. She froze, squinting into the darkness. "What do you want from me?" She breathed, barely a whisper. The shadows halted, then split, pulling back just enough for a glimpse of an unnaturally pale figure. Rachel's breath stuttered, chills coursing through her. It was a child, a little girl, appearing from the writhing mass of darkness. Her skin was a sickly gray, eyes void of warmth, eyes that looked through Rachel as if she were nothing more than a ghost. "Help us," the girl rasped. Rachel's chest tightened. I can't. I don't know how." The girl's gaze darkened. The air shifted as if the shadows fed on her refusal, growing thicker and hungrier. Then behind the girl, another figure stepped out, another child with a twisted smile, reaching for her. "They can't leave, not without yours." Rachel recoiled, backpedaling as panic surged through her veins. The rooms around her seemed to shift, closing in as if the walls enjoyed watching her fear. "I need to find my kids. They aren't lost," she shouted, but doubt crept into her mind. Would she be able to find them? Could she flee in time? The little girl's voice pierced the thick air. "You are ours now." Rachel spun to run again, heart racing faster than ever, but the dark figures were multiplying, surrounding her in a tightening circle. She felt their energies pulling at her. She banged her fists against the walls, seeking any escape, knowing all too well she might not find what she was searching for. Breathless, just as the shadows reached for her, a voice rang out, a familiar voice calling her name, soft yet urgent. Rachel stumbled, torn between despair and a glimmer of hope. Was it truly Alex? Or another trick played by the darkness? "Mom!" The voice echoed, shaking her from the grasp of terror. For just a moment, the shadows hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. Rachel grasped the fleeting hope, darting towards the sound, desperate to discover the truth. Little did she know, the answers awaited her, wrapped in a nightmare that was just beginning to unravel. What awaited her deeper still in the clutches of the academy? Would she find her children, or discover something far more sinister? Rachel sprinted, the weight of the shadows pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, each pulse reverberating through her entire being. "Please let it be Alex," she thought, clinging to that flicker of hope, the voice driving her forward through a world distorted by terror. The corridor seemed endless. Light flickered sporadically, illuminating grotesque faces of children carved into the walls. Their mouths gaped in silent screams, twisted expressions that mirrored the fear clawing at Rachel's throat. She could feel them watching her, eyes burning at her back as she fled. "Mom!" The voice echoed closer now, urgent, filled with a desperation that made her blood run cold. Rachel turned sharply, the willingness to run in any direction clawing at her instincts. Shadows eagerly slithered by her, darting into every crevice like venomous snakes. "Alex! Where are you?" she shouted, her voice echoing back at her, tinged with madness. Distant laughter mingled with the screeching silence, mocking her desperation. Help us, the child's voice sounded again, echoing from every direction, growing louder, wrapping around her mind, squeezing until she could barely think. "Shut up. Just shut up," she screamed. Anger surged through her, fighting back against the despair. But the shadows crawled closer, and she could feel their breath, cold and clammy, licking at the nape of her neck. Rachel pushed on, her thoughts racing. She spotted a flickering light a few paces ahead. Another door, slightly ajar, spilling a warm glimmer that beckoned her like a siren in a stormy sea. A fragile hope gleamed inside her as she charged forward. As she reached the door, her hand grasped the cold handle. A low, guttural moan resonated from behind her. "No, not that way." The shadows recoiled, horrified by an unseen force. The urgency of the voice snapped her focus back. With shaking hands, Rachel turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a room filled with chaos. Old desks toppled over, papers strewn about like discarded thoughts. But there, Just beyond the debris, stood a figure small and frightened, surrounded by dim light. "Mia?" Rachel gasped, heart soaring. The figure moved, the light flickering to reveal a face twisted with fear, but not her daughter. The child in the light, with wide, hollow eyes, wore a crooked smile that sent a jolt of dread through her. "We've been waiting, Mom." Rachel's heart sank as dread quickly consumed the hope. "Where is she? Where's Mia?" She backed away, the laugh echoing around her, rising from the darkness, a cacophony of the lost. "Stay, you'll find her," the mocking voice whispered, the shadows lunging threateningly as if beckoning her to join them. She turned to run, only to find the swirling mass of darkness closing in, blocking every escape, leaving her trapped in a cocoon of fear. No way forward, nowhere to hide. Panic tightened around her like a noose. "No!" Rachel screamed, fighting for clarity amidst the maddening chaos. She yanked a heavy desk towards the door, an act of defiance. The sound of wood scraping against the floor pierced the gloom, momentarily breaking the spell of hopelessness. "What are you doing, Mom?" The voice trembled, flickering dangerously as shadows encroached. "I'm not giving up." With a primal roar, she swung the desk forward, crashing it against the door with every ounce of desperation she had left. The door splintered, allowing a sliver of light to seep through, but just as hope surged, that twisted figure reappeared, darker than before, eyes glimmering with malice. "You'll never leave, not unless you give us what is ours." A sickening realization hit her. Rachel's breath caught, and the shadows shifted, hungry and waiting. "What do you mean?" A dreadful chill swept through her. But nothing prepared her for the next words that would shatter her world. "You have to choose between them and yourself." The chilling silence hung thick in the air, leaving Rachel trapped in a nightmare that had only just begun. What horror lay hidden in her choices? Would the intentions of those trapped shadows reveal themselves before it was too late? Rachel's breath quickened, and her pulse pounded in her ears like a war drum. She was paralyzed, caught in that moment where time itself felt like a cruel taunt. The twisted figure loomed over her, an embodiment of her deepest fears. "What is yours?" Rachel croaked, each word dragging her deeper into the abyss of dread. "Your love, your sacrifice," the figure hissed, the shadows around it writhing and convulsing like demons eager to drag her into their depths. Panic clawed at Rachel's throat. How could she choose? There was no choice. How could a mother ever? "Mom." The faint voice broke through the chaos, piercing the fog of desperation. It was Mia. Rachel's heart splintered with the intimacy of a parent's anguish. "I need you." The shadows shifted, pressing against her from all sides, thickening like a suffocating fog. "Choose." They commanded in unison, a chorus of chilling echoes that bounced around the dim room. "No!" she shouted, the sound of her own voice igniting a spark of resolve. She couldn't let this malevolent presence dictate her reality. She had to fight. "I won't let you take either of them." With renewed fervor, Rachel slammed her hands against the remnants of the door, shards of wood splintering around her. "You can't have us. I won't let fear steal my children." In this moment of defiance, she felt a shifting in the air surrounding her, a kind of energy swelling as she summoned all her strength. "I refuse to choose," she screamed, her voice reverberating through the stagnant room. The shadowy figure shrieked, a sound that twisted the very fabric of reality. It recoiled as if stung. "You'll regret this, Rachel. The price you will pay will haunt you for eternity." The room seemed to tremble. The air thickened, swirling like a tempest around her. As the shadows writhed violently, a doorway flashed into being, framed in a brilliant light that pierced the darkness. It beckoned her, a promise of escape but also an unknown terror. "Rachel!" Alex's voice called out, closer now, authoritative and steady. "Follow me." Shadows thrashed violently, coiling around Rachel's limbs like serpents intent on dragging her down. She fought against their grip, pulling herself toward the glowing doorway. The light pulsed, its warmth igniting her fragile hope. But what would lie beyond? Could she trust that brightness, or was it just another trap lurking in the folds of the unseen? Mia! Stay with me! She cried, her heart torn. Fighting through the rising tide of sheer panic, she glanced back toward the grotesque figures slithering toward her. The malevolence was palpable. Please! But the silence echoed, mocking her pleas, and the shadows hissed in unison, there is only room for one, Rachel. Choose. With every ounce of resolve left, Rachel lunged for the door, still feeling the shadows biting at her heels. The blinding light enveloped her, and she crossed the threshold, but just before entering, an icy hand gripped her wrist. Choose wisely, dear mother, it whispered, as her vision clouded with dark tendrils. The truth waits for you. It yanked her back, forcing her to teeter between realms past and present, light and shadow. Chaos erupted, making it impossible to breathe as she realized, this wasn't the end. Something more awaited her in the light, and the darkness had its claws sunk deep. What awaited Rachel beyond the threshold? Would she risk everything to discover her fate, or would the shadows consume her entirely? Rachel's body was pulled between the two realms, the heat of the light and the chill of the shadows clashing around her like a thunderstorm. She felt herself being ripped apart, but the icy grip of the hand holding her wrist was unlike anything she had experienced. Terror electrified her, and a scream lodged in her throat as she fought against the force trying to keep her bound to the darkness. Let me go! She gasped, desperation slicing through her voice. But the figure leaned closer, its face a chaotic blend of agony and ecstasy, cheeks sinking with despair, eyes wide with madness. You'll never escape your choices, Rachel. It spat, its breath cold and heavy like damp earth. You will bear the weight of your decisions and their consequences. As the shadows writhed more furiously, Rachel's heart raced. The voice of Mia rang louder in her mind, urging her to return to her daughter. No. I want to choose between my children. She cried, summoning every ounce of love and determination. She envisioned Mia's innocent face, beaming with hope. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the doorway, a pulse of energy that bathed them both in warmth. The shadows shrieked, twisting away from the intensity of the light. Rachel felt a surge of power ignite within her, a breath of fresh air after suffocating for too long. She twisted in the figure's grip, pulling herself free. In an act of rebellion, she dashed through the doorway. The pain from the icy grip released her as she stumbled forward into a world of blinding light. She landed on her hands and knees, and a burst of warmth enveloped her. This place was vibrant, but beneath the surface, an all-consuming dread quietly simmered. Where am I? Rachel gasped, her voice echoing in the shimmering void. The scenery shifted, colors swirling like wet paint, and she found herself in a marble hall, walls adorned with portraits of familiar faces, her family, her friends. But their expressions twisted, mouths gagged with horror and eyes that pleaded silently for help. The beauty of the hall betrayed a deeper horror lurking behind each painted smile. Rachel, a familiar voice whispered, as if carried by the wind. She turned and there stood Alex, or so it seemed, his eyes wide, but void of the love she knew. He stared coolly, devoid of emotion. You made your choice. What do you mean? A tremor filled her voice. Rachel watched as the hall began to warp, the portraits transforming into grotesque versions of her loved ones, mutilated and writhing. It was her worst nightmare, crawling to life. Every action has a price. The figure from the shadows materialized beside Alex, grinning maliciously. This is your world now. A creation of your choices. Welcome to your hell. Rachel stumbled back, heart racing. This wasn't an escape, it was a worse prison, an endless loop of sorrow and regret. The walls began to close in on her, the portraits laughing in mockery, their painted lips curling into horrid smiles. Mia! She cried out, panic rising once more as she realized her daughter was nowhere to be found. Where is she? The malicious figure stepped closer, its voice soft yet cruel. You left her behind, Rachel. Now, you'll pay for it. Remember, there is no escape except through sacrifice. Rachel's pulse raced as she faced the torturous visions before her. She felt the shadows stretching out to reclaim her. The very air thickened around her, and the walls of the hall began to pulse with malevolent energy. Suddenly, a door flickered in the distance, barely visible through the mayhem. Hope surged again, but would it lead her back to Mia, or another torment? Rachel hesitated, caught between the horror of the present and the possibility of another chance. Would she dare take that leap? What awaited her behind the door, a chance for salvation or an even deeper terror? The door loomed ahead, flickering like a beacon in a storm. Every instinct told Rachel to run, to slam against it with her whole body, but doubt slithered into her mind. What if it led her deeper into this nightmare? The laughter from the portraits wrapped around her like a shroud, taunting and cruel. She could almost hear Mia's giggles slipping away, fading into the chaos. Panic gnawed at her insides, a wild animal desperate to escape. Rachel's heart raced, echoing loudly in the hollow air. No! She yelled, the defiance igniting a spark of courage. With a sprint that seemed to defy gravity, she lunged for the door, reaching for the handle and twisting it painfully with trembling fingers. The metal felt ice-cold, contrary to the burning heat of desperation coursing through her veins. The door swung open, and she tumbled through, landing in darkness. The air was thick and musty, the ground uneven beneath her feet. She stood and turned, but the door slammed shut behind her with a bone-chilling thud. She was alone now, enveloped in an oppressive silence that screamed louder than the laughter of the hall. Adrenaline surged as she took stock of her surroundings. Faint outlines began to emerge, shapes shifting in the shadows. To her left, a flicker of light caught her eye. Cautiously, she moved toward it, her breath hitching with each step. As the shadows drew back, Rachel found herself in a different kind of room, a cellar or a dungeon, the walls covered in dark stone, glistening slightly as if weeping. Wooden beams crisscrossed above her head, and in the far corner, a blood-red light pulsed ominously. "Help me," a voice drifted from the corner, weak and muffled. It was a child's voice, a desperate echo of innocence that nearly shattered her resolve. "Mia?" Rachel called, her voice barely a whisper, trembling in the air. She rushed to the center of the room, heart pounding. Could it really be? In that moment, shadows stretched from the walls, coiling around her ankles, pulling her down. She tugged her feet back with all her strength, but they felt like lead. "No! I will not be taken again!" She yelled, wrenching her body free with a metallic cry. The voice grew louder, filled with pain but threaded with hope. "Help me, Mommy! That's my girl!" Rachel surged toward the pulsing light. The air crackled with energy. Shadows recoiled from the glow, whispering darker secrets just beyond comprehension. "Stay away!" she shouted, clutching her head as voices swirled around her, a cacophony of tortured screams and pitiful pleas for mercy. Her vision blurred as more shapes emerged, twisted faces drenched in sorrow. They screamed accusations, and the weight of their despair crashed against her, suffocating. No. She wouldn't let them break her. She was a mother, a protector. Gathering the shreds of courage that remained, Rachel lunged towards the red light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, throbbing with urgency. Was Mia on the other side? What sacrifice would she have to make? As she reached the edge, the shadows howled with fury. Hands like iron grasped at her, fingers digging in so deep that each clawing pull felt like a part of her very soul was being torn away. "Sacrifice!" the malicious figure echoed from behind, its voice dripping with poison. "That's all you have left to offer?" Rachel blinked away the tears, a fierce determination igniting inside her. She could not be broken. In that moment, she promised herself whatever lay beyond that light would be faced with boldness, but just as she took a step forward, the ground cracked beneath her, and the shadows began to spiral. Would she make it to the light? Would it be her salvation, or the final trap? The answers loomed just out of reach like a tragic opera waiting for its final act. "Mommy!" The voice cried again, and in that call, a new terror formed. What if she wasn't the only one in danger? Rachel's breath hitched as she felt the ground shift. What awaited her now? The ground crumbled more, fissures spidering like veins towards her. The pulsing light flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced against the stone walls. Rachel felt like she was caught in a nightmare loop, unable to wake up. Her pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the child's voice that called to her. "Mia!" She cried again, her voice trembling but fierce. The room shifted, more claustrophobic. Walls that just seconds ago felt solid now seemed to buckle inward, suffocating her with the weight of unseen secrets. She could see the red light clearer now, a beacon in a maelstrom of chaos. But was it truly a rescue, or a lure? She hesitated, doubt creeping back like an unwelcome guest. Suddenly, the air thickened with shadows, swirling around her like a storm. Whispers echoed off the walls, punctuated by high-pitched laughter that quickly turned sinister. "Join us," they crooned, an invitation smeared with malice. "No!" Rachel shouted, angrily whipping around to face the shadows. They recoiled momentarily, and she seized that flicker of courage. She was a mother, and she wouldn't be intimidated. The child's voice was growing more frantic. "Mommy, please. Help." Rachel's heart splintered at the brokenness laced through the plea. "Where are you?" she demanded, searching the darkened corners. The red light seemed to pulse more violently now, as if responding to her desperation. "Here." A tiny hand emerged from a gap in the stone wall, the light illuminating a small, dirt-smeared face. Panic surged through Rachel, but it was tinged with hope. "Mia! My baby!" She lunged for the hand, grasping it in her own. But that impulse proved deadly. The moment they joined contact, pain shot through her, electrifying and chilling, as if every shadow screamed in agony. Rachel screamed, the sound ripping through the heavy silence. But she refused to let go. The child's face twisted sorrowfully. "Help me, Mommy. You can't leave me. Just hold on. I'm here." Rachel cried, forcing her feet to step forward, but no sooner had she done so than the floor beneath her buckled again. Cracks widened, and the shadows surged with renewed fervor, wrapping around her waist with unyielding grip. "Sacrifice!" they howled, voices merging into a single malevolent roar. Every fiber of Rachel's being screamed at her to fight back, but the weight of despair began to drown her. "No!" she whispered fiercely. Her determination flared, igniting a memory, a time when Mia giggled through the park, and warmth flooded Rachel's chest. She pushed back against the shadows, her love flaring bright against the darkness. "Release her!" Rachel cried. "You want a sacrifice? Take me, not my child." Silence fell, and the whispers paused. For a heartbeat, hope sparked, but then the shadows convulsed, thrashing angrily. "Mommy!" Mia's voice rose through the tumult, a sharp knife of fear. Terrified, Rachel strained harder, pulling against the sinister grip, the fire in her heart burning brighter than before. The shadows tightened, screaming to drown her will, wrapping around her throat as if to choke her resolve. "You cannot escape. You are already lost." Suddenly, a sharp crack pierced the air, and the pulsing light exploded, sending shards of crimson energy cascading through the room. Rachel shielded her eyes, the brilliance illuminating a grotesque tapestry of despair around her, souls tangled within the walls as though they too were prisoners. In that breathless moment, she caught a glimpse of Mia's eyes, wide with terror, and a decision crystallized within Rachel's mind. She wouldn't leave without her. The shadows howled, frenzy sweeping through them at the sight of the light. She took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of love into a final push. "I will not abandon you." With a desperate thrust, she lunged toward the heart of the light, ready to face whatever lay beyond, but before she could touch it, the shadows erupted, tearing apart the ground itself. What awaited her now? Would the light burn away the suffocating darkness, or consume her completely? The ground quaked, revealing a deeper abyss that seemed eager to swallow her whole. Rachel braced herself, heart pounding, as the cacophony of shadows howled around her. Would she emerge from this alive, or would she be another lost echo in the forsaken depths? Only one way to find out. Would she dare dive headfirst into the unknown? The ground rumbled with a grotesque hunger, a churning abyss ready to engulf everything in its proximity. Rachel felt the cold, clammy air wrap around her like a noose, tightening with every tremor. Fear clawed at her heart as she teetered on the edge of the gaping maw below. Clenching her teeth, she fought against the terror threatening to pull her down. "Mia!" She screamed again, the sound raspy and desperate, but swallowed quickly by the raging darkness. The shadows snickered, their laughter like nails on a chalkboard, echoing her fear back at her. "Come play with us," but she wouldn't succumb. Not to the taunts of phantoms. Not now, not ever. With renewed resolve, Rachel's instincts kicked in. She edged closer to the light, its warm glow luring her like a moth to a flame. What if it was the key? What if it could lead her to Mia? The thought quickened her heart, pushing her to ignore the anxious whispering in the back of her mind. "Please, just a little more," Rachel urged herself, willing her legs to move despite the shadows writhing insistently at her sides. Without warning, the darkness surged forward, tendrils reaching out for her. They coiled around her ankles, squeezing with chilling force that threatened to pull her back. "Another will be lost," an ominous voice hissed. "No!" Rachel shouted, ripping her foot free, but panic stirred like a tempest inside her. She couldn't lose Mia. She wouldn't. Summoning every ounce of her strength, she leaped toward the pulsating light, but the shadows struck back. A million chills coursed through her as they lashed out, grazing her skin like icy fingers. Just yards from the light, Rachel found herself torn between hope and despair. Time slowed as she scrutinized the warmth beckoning her in the distance. Would she reach it before the darkness claimed her? "Remember me." The child's voice pierced through the air, laden with desperation. "Mia!" Rachel called out, the name igniting something deep within her, a flicker of strength. She couldn't let her daughter down. The thought galvanized her. With a determined cry, she surged forward, propelled by the fierceness of her love. In an explosive rush, she reached the light. As if drawn by an unseen force, she felt it wrap around her like an embrace. Heat flooded her being, washing away the chill and whispering promises of safety. In that moment, fear melted into determination. But then something shifted. The light dimmed, flickering as shadows clawed and scrabbled at its edges. No. She couldn't lose it. She couldn't lose Mia. "Mama." The voice was piercing, a plea that plunged into Rachel's soul. The world around her began to collapse. The light shrank, flickering like a faulty bulb about to die. Would she have to sacrifice the very essence of her hope to save her daughter? In that heart-stopping instant, Rachel felt her spirit intertwining with the light. It expanded, pushing back against the shadows like a furious tide. Yet, she could feel the backlash, the grating force of the darkness fighting fiercely to reclaim its territory. "Let her go." The whisper turned into a shriek, chaotic and filled with agony as the shadows recoiled, hissing and sputtering like angry serpents. Adrenaline coursed through Rachel. She pushed her hands forward, feeling the warmth in her fingertips merge with the growing light. This was her moment. If she was to save Mia, she would have to fight. "Stay with me," she yelled, focusing on the light, on Mia, on love. The shadows writhed, a cacophony of anguish intertwined with fury. "You cannot keep her. She belongs to us." But Rachel's heart was a fortress. "No. She is mine." The struggle escalated, a violent clash of light against shadow. The walls trembled, and the ground beneath them began to splinter. "Mama! Help me!" The words rang out, fragile yet fierce. Then, a pivotal moment occurred. What splintered first, the shadows or her resolve? Suddenly, everything stilled. The shadows recoiled as if struck, the light flared, trembling yet steady. The abyss yawned wider, echoing with a primal rage. Rachel felt that she was not merely fighting for Mia, she was battling for her own very spirit and sanity. Would the light finally triumph, or would she be cast into darkness alone, a mere wisp of what once was? Would her next decision lead to salvation or despair? The answer hung in the air, thick and charged with tension, waiting for her choice. The churning shadows seethed, swirling ominously as they readied for another assault. Rachel braced herself, the realization hitting her with icy clarity. She was not just a participant in this nightmare. She was the reckoning. And she would fight, no matter the cost. With resolve igniting her very spirit, Rachel braced herself for the confrontation. The shadows loomed around her, hungry and restless, snarling like beasts denied their prey. She felt Mia's presence fading, yet the echoes of her daughter's voice rang like a clarion call within her. "Stay with me." These words were the fuel she needed. As Rachel steadied her breath, she focused on the pulsing light ahead, the beacon that promised safety, a bridge between love and despair. The shadows twisted, recoiling from her firm gaze, startled as she took a bold step forward, heart alight with determination. "I won't let you take her," Rachel declared, her voice rising above the tempest of despair. The air crackled, shadows swirling as they howled in rage. They pounded against the walls, tentacles of darkness slithering perilously close, looking for any sign of weakness. But there, amidst the chaos, a flicker of warmth radiated from the light, urging her on. With a no-nonsense roar, she surged into the luminous embrace. The moment her hands touched it, a surge of electricity shot up her arms, harmonizing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. The shadow shrieked, its anguished screams swirling around her like a cyclone of fury. Rachel felt herself becoming one with the light, merging her very essence with its warm glow, illuminating the darkened corners of her mind. Together, Rachel screamed, willing Mia's spirit to rise with her. "We can fight." In that instant, the world shifted. The shadows convulsed violently, straining against the radiant light that surged from Rachel's core. The figures that haunted her began to blur, familiar faces twisted with grief and sorrow, but their moans turned to cries of desperation as the light expanded. "Release her." Rachel was unyielding. "You cannot keep her from me." The shadows twisted frantically, retreating as if struck, their nightmarish forms diluting into the brightness. Rachel pressed forward, holding on to her love for Mia, converting it into unrelenting strength. The light pulsed stronger, a harmonious response to her soul's call, illuminating the twisted forms with every beat of her heart. The shadows thrashed, wailing in dismay, "No. You cannot win. Sacrifice. It is everything you possess." But someone must sacrifice, Rachel thought. "No." She shouted back, "I choose love over fear." With unified resolve, she pushed herself deeper into the light. It swelled around her like a tidal wave, swallowing the darkness in its fervor. The echoes of agony transformed into melodic whispers, a choir of memories and hopes from laughter-filled days. Rachel could feel Mia's spirit clinging to hers, refusing to let go. "Mama." The voice surged like a wave, resonating through her. Then it happened like thunder breaking through the night. A crack resonated across the chamber as light erupted, enveloping them both completely. The shadows began to dissolve into nothing, ink splattered onto a page too thin, and Rachel felt a sense of release, the kind of relief that follows devastation. The chilling grip released from her ankle, then her waist, and before she knew it, she steadied herself in a realm filled with bright, blinding light. And there she found Mia. "Mama." Mia rushed into her arms, a whirlwind of bright energy and warm laughter. Tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks as she hugged her daughter tightly, arms wrapped protectively around her. Their bond felt tangible, solidifying in the radiant environment, proving that love prevails, that it bursts through even the darkest realities. I thought I lost you. Rachel cried, the warmth of relief flooding her. Together, they stared back at the collapsing shadows, swirling into a spiral of whimpering echoes, losing their power with every heartbeat that thrashed against the void. And at that moment, Rachel understood the darkness could only persist if one gave in to its fear. The shadows had no place here. I'm so scared, Mia said, sniffling softly, but at Rachel's side, her presence spoke volumes of courage. Rachel held her daughter closer, feeling nagging fears dissipate into the air. We're safe now. I promise. As the last remnants of shadow scrambled away into the ether, the blinding light cocooned them in warmth. Rachel felt the weight on her heart lift. It was over. The darkness was gone, replaced with a vibrant clarity that made the world around them unfurl into warm colors. Twinkling lights cascaded around them like sprinkles of joy, and Rachel looked down at Mia, beaming with love. She knew they could return to life without the taint of fear gripping their hearts. She had fought for her children and had won. Exhausted but victorious, they moved forward, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever came next. All lessons learned, all bonds tightened. At that moment, Rachel forged the first steps toward home, with hope lighting the path, and as they ventured toward their new beginning, one thought burned through every shadow: now love conquers all. Now, that's a powerful truth. If you love this story and want to uncover all the haunting tales yet to come, you need to subscribe now. Don't let this moment slip away. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Tell me in the comments how this story made you feel, and flood the section with your theories. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You know you want to. Don't wait even one more second. Your support matters.